Hello, my name is Ileana Zuckerman. I go to the University of California at Santa Barbara, and my mentor is Elizabeth Sauer. Today, I want to share my research with you on how writing centers can take an interdisciplinary approach and turn towards the field of art history to help explain analytical writing. My methods of doing so were two. I used observations and academic research. I work in my school's writing center, and I noticed that students tend to struggle with two main areas when it comes to analysis. Either students have a lot of quotes and very little analysis, or they have good analysis, but it's situated in very weak context and quotes. I turned towards the field of art history because that's how I learned how to write analytically. And although there are a lot of different approaches to art historical analysis, Panofsky's approach breaks down analysis into three steps. He breaks it down into pre-iconographic analysis, iconographic analysis, and iconological analysis. Pre-iconographic analysis has one look at a painting or a piece of artwork and just describe what they see. So in this case, I would say, I see a town with a dark sky, a lot of stars, and a moon. Iconographic analysis is using the information that you see and basing it in the context that you live in. So I know that this is Vincent van Gogh's Starry Night because it's a very famous painting in today's day and age. Iconological analysis takes this analysis a step further beyond just the visual meaning and researches Vincent van Gogh, the time period that he painted this, and all the background information that could have affected when he made this painting. And when you do all that research, you learn that this painting was made after Van Gogh admitted himself into the sane asylum for cutting off his own ear. So this painting is not just a nighttime landscape, but is a representation of Van Gogh's struggle with navigating his mental illness at the insane asylum. So it goes beyond just a visual meaning when you do the iconological analysis. Now, this approach can be used in writing centers. So pre-iconographic analysis in writing centers looks like restating the quote. Now, while this may seem redundant, it can be very helpful if there's a very complicated quote or quote from another time period. For example, if you had a Shakespearean quote, it might be difficult for the reader to understand what the quote is saying. So restating the quote in modern language could help clarify what the quote is saying to the reader. Iconographic analysis includes information, connecting the quote to information already presented in the paper and in the paragraph. So this is like a transition to help just connect the ideas on a basic level between the quotes and what has already been stated. Iconological analysis takes this a step further and connects the quotes to the argument. So iconological analysis is really emphasizing how does the evidence the student chose support the argument that they're trying to make in the paper. Now, as noted, I noticed two main things that students struggle with analysis. The first is the overuse of quotes. So the way that you can use Panofsky's approach to remedy this is ask the students to explain why they used the quotes that they did. Normally, the students have a good answer for this. They just don't have it written down. What they are telling you is them engaging in iconological analysis where they're explaining why they use the quotes they used to support the argument that they're trying to make. They just need to have that written on the paper. And if they can't explain why they use the quotes they did, maybe it's not good evidence for their paper. The second is that some students have really good analysis, but very little context. And this can make it very confusing when a character is saying a quote, but you're not introduced to who the character is or why it's important that they said it themselves. So this comes from a fear of students. A lot of professors tell students not to do summary for summary's sake. And so a lot of students take this as don't write any context. It's important to point out to students how summary for summary's sake is different than summaries for context sake. You need the context to be able to keep your arguments and your ideas clear in your paper. If I don't know who's saying the quote, then I'm going to be confused as to why that is significant, even if the analysis is relatively good. Now, two concerns that may arise using Panofsky's approach. So the first is that students will lose their individual writing style if they use the same schema. And with that, I'd like to say that if the students use Panofsky's framework to really focus on the quotes that they chose, why they chose it, and how it supports their argument, then they can have all the information that they need there, and they can focus on presenting that information in a way that appeals to them and based on their writing style. So when they're not focusing on the content, they can focus on their writing style because they already have the content done. Because of this thing, the writing styles of all the students will be different. The second concern is that students' papers will become repetitive in and of itself. But again, Panofsky's framework is Panoply's method is a framework that students can use to organize the content that they're going to be writing in their paper. So they have a quote and they restate the quote, and then they connect it to the rest of the information already presented in the paragraph, and then they connect that to the argument. But they don't need to have all three of those steps for every single piece of evidence that they have in their paper. Looking at the paragraph example on the top here, the pre-iconographic analysis is in blue, the iconographic analysis is in orange, and the iconological analysis is in red. However, after every quote, we don't have blue, orange, red, because the student decided to mix the information in a way that's more concise and coherent for their arguments. All elements are present, they're just presented in a different manner. So if they do this throughout the paper, then their paper will be repetitive in and of itself. Panofsky's approach is significant for two main reasons. First, it can allow the student to find their own voice because they're going to be focusing on the content separate from the writing. And second is, while students can use Panofsky's method and framework with writing tutors in the Writing Center, this is a tool that they can take outside of the Writing Center and practice on their own. When they have a framework to use, they can practice analytical writing on their own time. Down below is my contact information and the QR code. And thank you for letting me share my research with you on how writing centers can take an interdisciplinary approach to help explain analytical writing. Bye.